Yeah, so I didn't know what I was going to talk about when we announced that we were going to do this, but then halfway through I realized that I'm super excited about the new Pathfinder Kingmaker, and I was going to do a talk. I was going to make this past weekend, but then I didn't, so here we are. So what is Pathfinder Kingmaker, and why do we care about it being the next Neverwinter Nights? So it's a CRPG. It came out recently, this fall. It is the first game that's set in the Pathfinder universe, which uses like the D20 system that, so there's D&D, right? And that's using D20. And there's a like sub-module portion of it that is open source. So there's a bunch of universes that have been created that utilize that system, but aren't like Dungeons and Dragons. So I guess the developer Alcat got the license to it, and they hired Chris Avallone to write the whole thing, and it's really awesome, the writing. I mean, the whole game is pretty good. It's also made in Unity. So it's kind of the first game that they've made as themselves as a developer. And so there's some things you can kind of see how it, the best thing I think that really sold me on the game is reading any review of the game on Steam, because they had like a whole lot of like wall of texts about how terribly broken the game was. But then you could see from that, because like halfway through the game, it's unbalanced, and there's these things, and there's lots of bugs. But then you can see that the developer is updating like every other day to try to fix all these issues. And people are really excited about writing these like really informative reviews. And I'm like, well, maybe I should just try it. So I did. So people are talking about it like, is it the next Baldur's Gate? And no, it's not the next Baldur's Gate. Neverwinter Nights is the next Baldur's Gate. Because, like, I'm sorry, Baldur's Gate is old and it's not playable anymore. They remastered it. It's like if you play Hitman, like the first Hitman, you can't play it anymore because, like, unless you're like literally quick saving every 2 seconds, it's just the game is no longer designed for modern tastes. And Baldur's Gate, while it was terrific at the time, it's very, like, your walk speed, even in the remaster version, is very slow, and it's very easy to get lost, and just, like, aimlessly lost. Not like, oh, it's so picturesque and exciting, and what's going to happen? No, you're just lost, and then you pick the wrong skill tree, and you're dead. And why did you do that? So no, we don't need the next Baldur's Gate. We already have that. It's Neverwinter. Why is Neverwinter the next Baldur's Gate? Well, I mean, it is actually a Forgotten Realms game, so technically it is. But also, at the time, it was a really well-designed game. It had a lot of player choice. It had a lot of like meaningful decisions, whether or not you actually impacted the story. Not really, but that's like any narrative game, really. But it made you feel like you're like making a meaningful choice. So it had the D&D rule set, and it really felt like you were playing a D&D game. It's highly moddable, which, kind of kept people playing. But if you look at it now, it's a potato. It really looks like crap. It's very sad, because like Neverwinter 2 was not good. Like, it definitely aesthetically looks better, but it doesn't have the same, I am playing a D&D game and I can make choices and I can dick around in the bar and like do stupid things and steal random stuff from people. Like, you can't really do that as well in Neverwinter 2, and the mod system was not as well designed, so you didn't really have as many cool mods as you had in Neverwinter. The one problem with Neverwinter is the battle system was really designed where if you played a rogue, you were OP, and if you played anything else, well, good job. But, I mean, pretty much. So why aren't these the next Baldur's Gate? Clearly, these are all like maybe AA, III, whatever, CRPGs that have been out recently. 3 of them are from Obsidian, right? Is Torment Obsidian? I forget. But yeah, so they're all Obsidian games. They made Neverwinter, so it makes sense they would be the next Neverwinter. Divinity Original Sin is a CRPG, is actually really good. It would be probably the thing that I would say is the closest to Neverwinter, the first Neverwinter. But then they went and remastered it, and they changed things, and they made it a lot more like console-friendly, single-player experience. The original Divinity, Original Sin, before they engineered it, you could bring your friends in, and if you disagreed on a dialogue option, you'd get into a rock, paper, scissors fight. And it was super awesome. And you could like make interesting narrative choices, and the skill trees were interesting. But then really, when you look at the battle mechanics, it's not really D&D. It's definitely more of a like Dragon Age kind of feel to it. Pillars of Eternity was great, except it really suffered from being a Kickstarter game. There's like huge mechanics of the game that are really just Kickstarter rewards that they're throwing at you, and they don't really tell you that when you're playing the game, or maybe they did in one of the little tiny text boxes that I didn't read. And then it also takes itself way too seriously. So you're playing through the game, and like all this like important stuff is happening, and you can play through, like that's what I do when I play through these games, is I like playing a bunch of different types of characters, and you really don't have this playset experience that you kind of have when you're playing Neverwinter. Tyranny is really good. It's very different narratively. Torment is probably the closest thing to me to Neverwinter, but it's not quite there. And it's also very samey. It's very much like we already know what our what works, and we're not going to take too many risks, but we're going to explore. So there's more exploration in Torment, which is interesting, but I don't think it's the next Neverwinter. So does Kingmaker do it better? I think so. They definitely have benefited from being post Pillars of Eternity, because they've been able to take a lot of design lessons that were in Pillars of Eternity that worked really well, and I think they did it better. But to say better, it's like they did it after, so it's really just an iteration. They have a lot of meaningful alignment choices, and the thing that's really interesting about their narrative dialogue options is that some of them only appear based on success rolls, and some of them tell you if you're making alignment choices so that you're able to make informed decisions about what you're actually choosing. There are critical narrative decisions that occur early in the game. They have a really good tutorial onboarding system, so it makes you feel like you are being embedded into the game world in a like really organic, natural way. It feels a little bit too organic, like it's too squeaky clean. Like there's not a lot of you're in a tutorial, but it doesn't feel like it's like the game system is a tutorial, so it doesn't feel like you're like being told to do X and Y unless you turn the tooltips on. But it definitely allows you to see what the whole game entails. It does have a lot of emphasis on the D20 system, so they have different narrative options, and they have different like parts of the map that you can only explore if you pass mobility checks. So it really does that, really hammers in that it's a D20 system. They have engaging but not mind-breaking battles. A lot of the CRPGs recently, if you're playing even on normal mode, like you're going to start playing your battle, and then you're going to reload to the beginning of the battle and figure out which one, turned out he was a mage and I should have attacked him first. In this one, you very obviously know who the mage is, and it doesn't have these things where obviously you should have flanked in this position and then you would have owned the fight. And, like sometimes there are things that are better to do, but I don't think it's like overkill at this point. I'm not at endgame yet. So there are some issues that you may say, well, maybe it's not the next Neverwinter Nights. It is a very small dev team. It definitely has a small budget feel to it. Some of just like the assets and the world, the way that it's built, just feels very like cookie cutter almost, but it's also like you're playing with a playset, so I guess that's also fine depending which way you look at it. The voice acting is good enough. A lot of the systems in the game, so it pretty much has anything a CRPG is expected to have now at this point. And then the big question you see in a lot of the posts is, does blank matter? Does it matter how I manage my city? Does it matter what choice I make at this point in time? And I guess my question to that is, does that actually matter? If you feel like you're playing a game and it's engaging and meaningful, does it matter if your narrative choice doesn't have a direct output? Like, it doesn't have a little telltale icon telling you that so-and-so's mad at you now. Like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You don't know what's going to happen. And then maybe if you play through the story again, it'll be different. It's buggy. There are definitely a lot of issues, problems even loading. Yeah, so it's not Bethesda levels of buggy that I can see so far, but I mean, maybe if that's part of a narrative quest, but not as a bug. But the big issue that I would see with this is it the next Neverwinter, is if there's mod support right now. Like, you can go to Mod Nexus and they have like a couple of like skin changes, like you can change the character icons. But they don't currently have mod support. I imagine because it is a Unity game and there is definitely the ability to support mods in Unity, that it's possible that they would do it down the road once they fix some of the stuff and becomes less of a clutch. Yeah, so then I also have some more shots of the game because it is a very pretty game, which I think is great. It also has a world map that you can explore, and it has a town that you can build, and it has really epic CRPG fights, which I think are quintessential things to being the next Neverwinter. The challenge I think that you have when you're playing the game, at least mid-level, like level 7 or 8, is that you have to mitigate between managing your town and, I want to go and dig into every dungeon and maybe my town will explode. You can do, like, there's settings, so you can make it so your town doesn't matter, but I'm trying to play the way that they intended the game to be made. Even if it doesn't have any real input, it just is narratively how the game is done. So that's what I was saying. If you're ever excited about CRPGs, you can always talk to me. All right, well, thank you. That's all I have.